Hey guys, welcome back. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, this particular video was supposed to be a twofer. So you were supposed to see my foundation routine and my skincare routine in one. But as I was editing, it ended up being way too long. So yesterday I uploaded the skincare part, and this video is showing you my full updated foundation routine. And I will link to yesterday's video, which was the skincare, the morning skincare routine portion down below if you're interested in seeing that. But if you're interested in the makeup side of things, just keep watching to see what my favorite products are and all my tips and recommendations. So now on to the makeup application portion of the video. And when I wear makeup or a full face, I nearly always wear a primer. A, because I have so many of them and I don't want my products to go to waste, but also B, especially if I'm working very early in the morning, I could be wearing my makeup for a long chunk of the day or a big chunk of that day. So you know, you just want to make sure that it looks as good for as long as possible. There's a few that I choose depending on my skin concern for that day, and you can see that with all my skincare. I will kind of jig it up a little bit depending on how my skin is that day or that week or whatever. So if my skin is a little bit more on the dry side, I like something like this, or dehydrated side more so. This is the Prep and Prime Natural Radiance primer by MAC. This is a really hydrating primer, but it is good for my shiny snaz because it also inhibits oil production. So for anyone like me who does want a little bit of oil control but just really doesn't want to be mattified any more than necessary, this is the one to go for. So there is a pink one and a yellow one available, and honestly I've used this on so many clients and on myself and so many people. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference that I can tell anyhow, but so I'm going between the two of them. You get 50ml in it, so there's loads in this, but it is expensive. Whoops, it is expensive. You're paying about €40, but you don't mind that. This is another one that I've been loving lately, a bit more expensive. It's the Chanel Blanc de Chanel. It is an illuminating base. It's like a brightening base. It gives a really subtle, like sophisticated sheen. This I would use if I want a bit more oil control. This contains powders, so it will give a little bit more of a matte effect, even though it gives a bit of a sheen as well. It's one of those really lovely products that you tend to only get if you spend a little bit more money on them. So that's definitely one I highly recommend. But the one that I've been using a lot that is much more affordable is the new Baby Skin Instant Pore Razor by Maybelline. And I wouldn't have a lot of pore issues by any means, but sometimes it's nice to use it just on the areas that I find can get a little bit more sheeny again throughout the day. So the sides of my nose, just down the very center of my nose as well, maybe on the chin and on the forehead. So you don't need a lot of this either. I tend not to go overboard. Less is more when it comes to these kind of silicone products. Uh-oh, my battery died there, which I had to replace. So I'm worried that this might be a bit longer than I thought it would be. Hopefully I'm not boring the shite out of you. But anyhow, like I was saying before that died, this is something that I would use again depending on my skin concern for that day or that week or whatever. So this is the SMASHBOX PhotoFinish Hydrating Under Primer. I have a few different eye primers. There's the MAC Vibrancy Eye one. There is a Gosh one that I have as well. But anyhow, I love this for the days that I need a little bit extra hydration on the skin. For the eye area again, or if I have those dry patches that I was on about, I'll probably go in with a bit of this. So it'll seem like an extra completely unnecessary step to most people, but for anyone who's particularly dry, or for like makeup and skincare junkies like myself, you probably will appreciate this, because I love makeup. I love applying all the makeup to my face. I love playing around with it, so it's no bother for me to apply an extra bit. So yeah, obviously it depends on how much time you have in the morning as well, but that's a really nice one, and it's a great one for the kit as well, particularly if you are working maybe on slightly older ladies, or again like anyone like myself who has a drier eye area. Now let's finally get onto the makeup. Once all that stuff is on my face, I don't bother waiting again after the primers, and this is the only foundation I'm going to speak about today because I love this. This is the number 7 Airbrush Away foundation. It is one of those foundations that's kind of like that Armani one, or oh, I can't even remember the name of it. You know, the way it contains these really lightweight oils that are supposed to like not act like oils, because this doesn't feel like you're putting oils on your face when you use this. It's a lovely light buildable foundation, so you can build it up to fairly medium coverage, but I wouldn't say you get full coverage off it by any means, which is good considering with all the different products that I buff on my face afterwards, I wouldn't want anything too heavy. This comes with a dropper, and I really like the consistency and the colour of this particularly. This is in the colour Calico, which is the lightest colour, and I've mentioned this before because I was going on about this in my favourites. This particular Calico is great for me. I have some of the other number 7 foundations, and the lightest colour, again Calico, isn't quite light enough, whereas this one is. So of course you can see how it looks on me today, and it just blends in beautifully. Now this is a very, very fluid foundation, so I tend to use either a fluffy brush or a sponge, and this is what I've been using more so lately. This particular sponge is by Catrice. It's not my favourite sponge in the whole world, it's just the one that I'm kind of testing out at the moment. It's a little bit harder than I like. It's not as good as, let's say, the Beauty Blender or the Real Techniques sponge, and it's hard to wash, which is, yeah, not the best either, and doesn't seem to absorb water quite as well. Jesus, I'm giving this an awful hard time. Not the worst sponge in the world, but not the best either. But because this is quite hard to wash, I don't want it overly laden with product if I can avoid it. So that's why I applied my number 7 foundation with this MAC 132 brush. I love this. This is kind of like a mixture of like the 130 and the 190, isn't that what it's called? So like if one of those little round skunk brushes married a normal flat foundation brush, you'd get something like this, even though it's a bit smaller. But it's great for just applying that all over the face. Then once I have it on and I'm not worried about blending it in or anything, I just want to use that to get the bulk of the product onto my face. Then I go in with my Catrice sponge and bounce and press the product into my skin. And you can really, really work it well into the skin, like really roll the sponge into your skin, depending on how much coverage you want, of course. And then if I need to go back in with a little bit more foundation, I will, whatever's left on the back of my hand, I will apply that onto my face with the brush and then go back in with the sponge and keep going until I'm happy with the coverage that I have from there. Excuse my high pitch voice there. Then next I'm going to go in with a concealer. The concealer for my eye area is this Fit Me concealer by Maybelline, and this is so old. Well, it's not even that old actually. I don't think it's even the 6 months. Maybe it is, that's probably a lie. But it is quite old, but the writing wears off this very, very easily. So it looks older than what it is. But I love this stuff. I have a backup already. Number 15, which is the lightest shade, is my tone. It's a pink toned concealer. So I love this for all over the eye area. It doesn't make the drier areas look any drier or anything like that. So I'll put this all over, including on the outer corner. There's a lot of concealers I will avoid on this outer area here of my face because it can show up texture and stuff that you just do not want shown up. This is fluid enough but with enough pigment that it'll cover the areas in here quite well and it won't show up any unnecessary texture there. I do put this over the entire lid, top and bottom, and I'm using my Real Techniques number 200 brush from the Bold Metals collection. I didn't love this for what it was intended for, which was a eyeshadow brush, but I love this for liquid products and for cream products. So that's what I use to apply this all over the eye area, and I usually end up patting it in then with my fingers. Then for concealer for my face, I am loving this guy here by Rimmel. It is the Lasting Finish Concealer. Such a great quality concealer for the price, and it's such good coverage. I think it is supposed to be high coverage. Yeah, high coverage. It's one of those really lovely waxy concealers, so it doesn't feel drying. Like some of those other cream concealers that have powders in them can be almost a little bit drying on the skin. This isn't drying at all, but because it's more waxy rather than emollient almost, it really kind of does stay in place. It's a really, really lovely product. This is number 20 Ivory that I use for particularly for the face, because it has that slight yellow undertone that suits my own skin tone. Great for counteracting redness. So I just scoop this up with my finger. This is my own personal one. I don't use this in my kit, so I'm happy to scoop this up with a clean finger, and then I tap this in place all over the face where I need that little bit of coverage, where I get a little bit of red. So down the center of my nose where I want to cover some of my freckles, either side of my nose where I tend to get quite red, and on my chin particularly, and anywhere else where I need it. And I just use my finger then. For any of these like thicker waxy concealers, I think the heat of your hand is your best friend. So I just use my finger and tap that in place and warm that product in place. And then once I'm happy enough that it's kind of there, but it might need a little bit more integration with the rest of my foundation, I'll just go over with my sponge again and tap that over the top of that. I also like to use this concealer then on the very, very inner corners of my eyes. Like I don't bring it over to that any area where I'm worried about texture. I literally keep it on this inner C shape here. So I have veins here I like to cover, and then just here on the inner corner of my under eye area I get quite purple, and that's why I love this, because it is yellow tone, so it will counteract the purple quite well. And yeah, love this stuff. I tend to use this as well as my eyeshadow base, and the yellow does counteract any redness on my lids, so that's what I've been using. Then once I have that much in place, before I set my face with powder, I like to add a little bit of light contour, and this is something that I definitely do on a daily basis, sometimes lighter than others. So on my lighter days I will go in with this guy, which I absolutely adore. This is the Illamasqua Hollow Pigment, and I've had this for so long, but it's still very much there because you use so little. Like, it's very pigment heavy, so little goes a long way. And again, using that Real Techniques brush again, I use that to scoop up a little bit of the product from the pigment from the pot and apply the product down either side of my nose, particularly focusing on the end of my nose, because there is quite a big bit of a difference in the width of the end of my nose to my nose bridge. So I try to make my nose look a little bit more narrow towards the end, and then I do tend to bring the product right up towards the eye and apply some there into my eye crease as well. Just a little bit of light contouring everywhere. If I need to blend that into place a little bit better, I'll just go back over with my damp sponge and help to make it look a little bit natural, more natural that way, or take away any obvious lines. Even though with this, because it's such a lovely light cream color, love this. It doesn't look very obvious on the skin. Then I will apply a little bit as well underneath my cheekbones with that same brush and along just the very top of my hairline, and I'll use that same sponge again then just to blush, or blend rather, everything in place. And that's a really, really lovely natural contour. I often just leave it at that on the days where I don't want it to look too heavy. Then it's time to set everything in place, and I go in with my setting powder first of all. So I'm actually lately using a setting powder and a finishing powder. Yes, they are different. A setting powder is what looks like this. It'll usually have a little bit of a tone to it. The finishing powders tend to be more translucent or invisible. This has a very, very light, fairly neutral tone. It is the Catrice Prime and Fine Mattifying Waterproof Powder. This is great for long day makeup wear. Yeah, and I applied this using my Luxe highlight brush from Zoeva today, which I absolutely love. This is my favorite kind of size of brush as well to use when applying powder. I don't like to go overboard with powder, so I apply this particularly either side of my nose where I get quite shiny throughout the day. You know, when I say throughout the day, this is after maybe about 8 or 9 hours of wearing makeup. Sometimes I could be working under hot lights or hot conditions though, and it might get a little bit shiny and sweaty earlier on. So something like this that is waterproof as well is great. So I apply this either side of my nose, down the center of my nose, just lightly between my eyebrows, and then I also apply a little bit on my chin, anywhere where I've concealed a blemish, and then I also lightly apply it over where any of that cream contour was, and anywhere where I want to apply powder afterwards, because otherwise the powder could cling to like the skin or the cream underneath and get a little bit too strong. So even though it sounds like I'm doing most of my face, there are a few patches I just leave totally empty, like this very, very center part of my forehead. It gets quite dry, so I try to avoid applying too much powder there. This is when I go in with my highlighter. My highlighter, my favorite highlighter at the moment, and this isn't new to me by any means, I've had it for ages. I'm sorry because I think it's limited and I don't think it's available at the moment, but it is Shea Shea La May from MAC. This was called the Special Reserve Highlight Powder. This is beautiful. It is a very light golden highlight. For some reason, I wasn't using it for ages because I thought for some reason it'd be too gold on me. But as you can see, it gives the most beautiful, just not very, very golden, but it has a little bit of a gold tone to it. Highlight, it's just gorgeous. Like it's not yellowy on the skin is what I'm trying to say. So I have been slathering this on. And again, I just use the same highlight brush again from Zoeva. Love this. So I applied this first before I use any other powder product. I used to do my contour and my blush first, but for some reason I've really taken to applying my highlight first. I think everything just blends in a little bit more seamlessly when I do it that way. So I do my highlight first. I did it along the top of my cheekbones, right down onto the top of my cheeks and up a little bit into the temple. And I buffed that fairly well into the skin. You don't want it to look like a big stripe on the face, but the better quality highlights tend to just kind of blend in with the skin a little bit easier anyhow. Then I move on to my smaller brush. This is a Sonia Kashuk tool number 28. It's just a little eyeshadow brush, but this is great for applying the concealer, or highlight rather, the highlight to any of the smaller areas of the face. So I applied it there underneath my brow bone, to the inner corner of my eyes, either side of my nose bridge, because I just tend to get very shadowed there because I have such a high nose bridge, so I'd like to counteract those shadows. And I also applied a little bit there to the very center of my lids, just to give a little bit of a spotlight effect to my lids, and also because I'm not really wearing any eyeshadow, even though I did apply a little bit of powder after the concealer. And then I also applied a little bit down the very center of my nose, again just to catch the light. I don't particularly like to make my nose look any bigger than it is, but I still do like the way it catches the light. And then a little bit onto my cupid's bow as well. Then next, just to strengthen up my contour a little bit more for the purpose of this video. I don't always do this on a daily basis. Sometimes that cream pigment by Illamasqua is more than enough, but on days where I'm on camera, or if I'm going to be in low light settings, I will go in with a stronger contour. Then I go in with my NYX Taupe blush, which I absolutely love, and I know they've reformulated. Where is it? I have one of the new blushes, but I wasn't able to get Taupe yet, so I know they're in these new packagings in this new packaging now, so I'm interested to see what the new taupe is going to look like. But this is the one. I have enough of it to do me for a while anyhow. So I went in and lightly went over the cheekbone area, or under the cheekbones, around the hairline, and I buffed that in well and made sure that there's no harsh lines by going back in with my setting powder and buffing over with the setting powder over the contour. So I tend to do that a lot. I tend to buff a lot. I think that really makes the difference to the skin. You don't want anything to look too obvious on the skin. And then I also applied the smallest amount down either side of my nose again just for the purpose of this video more so, and then if it was going out for a night out or anywhere where there'd be a lot of low light settings, go over again with a little bit of powder. Even though this sounds like it's taking forever, because it's taking me forever to explain it, I'd say I give myself about 20 minutes in the morning to do this. Everything's just in front of me, so it doesn't take too long to gather stuff up. Then I go in with my blusher. The blusher I've been loving at the moment, and I've been using this a lot lately, is this Catrice blush in 030 Kiss Me Ken. This has the most beautiful quilting on the top of it. It's a very strong blush. So when I lightly tap my brush into the blusher, I always have a tissue on hand to tap off any excess, because otherwise I will look like Aunt Sally. Then I go in very lightly onto my cheeks, onto the apples of my cheeks, and I do a little bit on one cheek, a little bit on the other cheek, and then start to buff and blend them in. Keep blending until it looks like not so obviously plonked on the face, if you know what I mean. And again, I go back in with my Catrice Prime and Fine mattifying powder just to blend all that in place. Now once I have that much on my face, I spritz everything again with my sprays. So of course I'm using my Vitamin E Facial Mist by The Body Shop, because that's what I'm using up at the moment, and then I just let that all dry again. So while that is drying, again, I'm trying to do something at every stage. While that's drying, I go in with my eyebrows, and I'm using my favorite eyebrow pencil by Catrice. It's the Eyebrow Stylist, and before in the past, my favorite pencil was the, I think it was number 20 or number 30, I can't remember. It was the Brown Eyed Peas one anyhow, and I didn't know that this darker one existed. This is the Charlie Brown is Black in Town number 50, because this is up in Dublin, you can't get it in Galway, and since I've gotten it I love it, just because it's a little bit closer in colour to my own hair colour, and I go very light with this. I don't like go very blocky with it by any means. I just very, very lightly run it through my brows, and don't do a huge amount to the inner section, the inner corners of my brows, the bushiest part. I just want to fill in any gaps, make sure they're even, because everyone has that one eyebrow that's good and that one asshole of an eyebrow. My right eyebrow was really, really nice, which is the left as you're watching. That's the one I'm happy with, and my left eyebrow, it's not really following suit, but I think that's my own fault for over plucking. So I need to do a little bit more work on my left eyebrow, and then I just perfect the tail and go in with a eyebrow gel, which is the Bourjois Brow Design mascara, and this is Châtain, I think is the colour. It's just not as dark. I have a dark brown one as well, but because I use such a dark pencil, I don't like to go too dark with the gel, so that's why I went in with that, and I really, really like the effect that it gives. Once the eyebrows are done and my skin is nice and dry again, I go in with my finishing powder. So my finishing powder is, and I have used this as a setting powder in the past, but I do actually like to use it as a finishing powder if I'm going for a fuller coverage kind of base, like what pretty much this is. I like the kind of oil control that I get from, say, something like this and the mattifying, even though this does mattify a little bit, but this is more about just giving that beautiful finish to the skin. This goes on totally invisible. Sometimes you're picking it up in the brush and it feels like you're picking up nothing. Don't worry, that's fine. It doesn't need to feel like you're putting it on. It gives this beautiful, like, subtle finish to the skin. It just gives, like, it contains these tiny, tiny little, like, I don't really want to call them glitter particles, but I suppose that's what they are. They're just so minute though that they're not tacky or very obvious looking. And when you just lightly apply this all over the face, it gives the most beautiful airbrushed finish to the face. And again, because you're buffing over all the previous powders that you've done, it just helps them look a little bit more seamless. I love this. This contains moisturizing ingredients, so it's not going to be drying on the skin, but it also does mattify anywhere that needs to be mattified, but it has that beautiful illumination. It's just one of those magical powders. It would want to be for the price because it's like 40 something quid, but I love it. It's seen better days, of course. It's not looking too well, but I will absolutely 100% repurchase this once it's gone, because it is one of my other holy, holy, holy grail products, along with that Vichy serum. So absolutely love that. At this stage, I think I applied a little bit more contour, and that's the NYX contour powder, to my eye contour, just to make that a little bit more obvious and stand outy, if that's the word. I went in with my favourite mascara at the moment, and I would have actually shown some of these in my last favourites video. This is the Lengthy Fibre Mascara by Pixie. This is great. I only applied to my top lashes, which is kind of something I've been doing lately. I haven't been bothering with my bottom lashes throughout the day, particularly with this though, because it does lengthen the lashes. It would make the bottom lashes too long, but I love this. Just brush that through, and then I finish off, pretty sure that's how I'm finishing off, isn't it? Yes, I'm finishing off then with just a tiny hint of something on the lips, just because I don't want to, you know, have everything else so polished looking and then do absolutely nothing on the lips. If I had lovely, big, plump, perfectly shaped lips, I'd probably just go in with a clear balm, but because my lips need a little bit of shaping, I go in with this colour lip balm, Pure Shine Colour Lip Balm by Catrice, which has a little bit of a shade to it. It has a little bit of a tone. This particular one is a lovely pinky tone, and I use this to ever so slightly go, like slightly, very, very slightly, I'll say slightly again, over my lip line to make them look a tiny bit fuller than what they are, and also add a little bit of colour, but this is quite moisturising as well. And that, my friends, is my very, very long-winded, but again, it only takes about 20 minutes full face routine. Well, the makeup will take about 20 minutes. The skincare and the shower part, I don't really count in that 20-minute time scale, but yeah, that's it. I hope this was helpful. I know there was a lot of products, but I just love them all. I love products, and I love makeup, and I love skincare. So if you've got any questions for me, leave them below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can, even though I'm kind of behind in comments at the moment, but I promise I always get back to comments eventually. And yeah, I'll see you all on Friday now for my next Halloween video. I've already got 5 Halloween videos done, but I'm still doing one every Friday on the run up to Halloween. So I'll see you next Friday for the next one. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Slán.